All right. Welcome in on this Thursday. So glad to have you here. We've got a busy show, very big details emerging about, Prince Andrew's arrest in the UK. Less Wexner information that we want to get to. Israel running security at Jeffrey Epstein's home in New York that has been now confirmed. And by the way, most all of these stories that you're hearing about, the mainstream media is acting like these are new things. But our guest today, Whitney Webb, who's going to be joining us in a few minutes, was telling all of us about this in her writings and her books as far back as like 2018, 2019. So she's going to be joining us on the show today.
Right. Even we had the morning news on us. We're getting the kids out the door this morning. Not even Prince Andrew. Like, that's a lead story. They're leading. It's the crate. I can't. You can tell. Yeah. I cannot. Okay. I will be able to formulate sentences today. We have a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get to it. Before, though, we get to the news, Clayton wants to tell you about our friends at Rumble Wallet.
I do indeed, because, so many people have been debanked. We've had friends of the show that have been debanked on a regular basis. And I was literally sitting with a journalist one afternoon, and he said, oh my God, they just shut my PayPal down. They just shut down all of my information. I can't get access to my funds. A great reporter who was covering the Ukraine war just shut down. Well, banks cancel accounts, freeze cards all the time. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money. Not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. It's yours on the blockchain. Check it out. You can buy several digital assets like Bitcoin, Tether Gold, all in one place. Tether Gold is real gold on the blockchain with ownership of physical gold bars. It's not only a wallet to buy and save, but it also allows you to support your favorite creators by easily tipping them with the click of a button. There'll be no fees when you tip any channel, anybody out there. So check them out at wallet.rumble.com. Again, download Rumble Wallet today, open an account, and step away from big banks for good. Wallet.rumble.com.
We also don't want to tell you about IQ Bar because, hey, if you have high important goals for your fitness this year, then you should check out IQ Bar because they have a buffet of offerings that can really help you meet your fitness goals. It's everyday brain and body fuel. What you're seeing there is their cold brew coffee. You can keep this with you wherever you go. They also have various flavors of nutritional bars and nutritional drink packets. And this is something I have in my car all the time because my son is a migrainer, I've said, and we need to have electrolytes on hand. Well, I don't want to give him something with artificial colors and flavors. So that's why we keep IQ bars around because we can quickly serve him electrolytes. And actually, most of us need that in our lives and we just don't even know it. So keep these for your on-the-go busy life. They have several flavors. You can get a sampler to see which one you like the best. So they have peanut butter chip, chocolate bars, all many flavors. This is something, Clayton's going skiing tomorrow. We always put it in our ski jackets as well. So this is high value nutrition in portable packets. Really great to have with you. So check it out. Text Redacted to 64,000. You'll get 20% off plus free shipping. Again, text Redacted to 64000. Get 20% off your order plus free shipping with IQ Bar. And we thank them so much for their support of Redacted.
I think you missed a zero there. 64,000. 64000.
That's 64,000.
Yeah, it's 3 zeros. Did
yeah.
I miss a zero? Anyway, yeah, check them out. Okay. All right, with that out of the way, the brother of a king has not been arrested for a crime in 349 years. Well, all of that changed this morning. British police arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a.k.a. Prince Andrew, earlier this morning on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Now, this comes after the Epstein files drop and allegations that he passed confidential trade material to Jeffrey Epstein. British police arrived at his residence with multiple unmarked vehicles, took him into custody as part of the investigation. Investigators have been reviewing claims that while he serves as the UK's trade envoy, he forwarded internal trip reports and related details, reportedly including briefing-style documents tied to overseas visits around the year 2010 to Jeffrey Epstein. So misconduct in public office, that offense can carry a maximum sentence of life in prison. The irony here, the bitter irony here, of course, is that the charge on paper is about public office conduct and confidential paperwork. This is like Al Capone being put away at Alcatraz, right? For tax evasion. They got him, but not on the thing that, not on the murder, not on the abuse. So the public conversation has obviously been dominated for years by his association with Epstein and the broader cloud of like sexual abuse allegations and everything else, not trade memos. So nothing about abusing little girls, of course, is in this arrest. They could charge him with treason as part of the arrest, but nothing for like anything with these little girls or any of the accusations there. Apparently, the king was given a heads up about this arrest, so he knew it was coming. The king issued a statement as well. Here's part of the statement. Let me state clearly, the law must take its course as this process continues. It would not be right for me to comment further on this matter. Meanwhile, my family and I will continue in our duty and service to you all. But the king basically saying, hey, the rule of law here, we got to follow the rule of law.
Oh, for him too, though? Because we learned from David Icke that he was best friends with Jimmy Savile, had him in the palace quite a lot. So in that context, his brother's behavior may not be a one-off. So can we look into that at all? Or is this the sacrificial meat of the royal family?
Meanwhile, stateside, still no arrests in the United States, but Congressman Massey tweeted this a short time ago. Prince Andrew was just arrested. This was the metric I established for success of the Epstein Files Transparency Act that Representative Khanna and I got passed. Now we need justice in the United States. It's time for Attorney General Pam Bondi and Kash Patel to act on this. I don't know. Kash Patel's pretty busy doing Dan Bongino's podcasts and patting themselves on the back how great of job they've been doing. Here was Congressman Massey explaining that I don't care if we have billionaires being embarrassed by all of this. We need arrests and we need perpetrators in handcuffs.
Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men in handcuffs being perp walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up.
Mm-hmm. Prince Andrew's ex-girlfriend, Lady Victoria Hervey, says Prince Andrew was set up by Israel through Epstein in order to bring down the royal family. She admitted this on TV.
I want this guy to stay alive.
But what is the
dying
motive
in this case?
What is the motive of the person who, in your view, falsified this photograph?
Oh, well, they were taking down the royal family, weren't they?
Well, who were?
Maybe Israel. Who knows?
Israel? Goodness me, come on. What do you mean, who knows? I mean, you're putting forward all these photographs. You've got no...
This is real.
No, it's not. This is all false.
Okay, all right.
This
well, maybe go back to bed.
Why would Israel be taking down the British royal family?
Tell me that.
Why would Israel do any of that? Why?
And the photographs are fake. Okay, guys, you should not be getting your news there. That's not.
Okay. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Israeli government, we learned from reporting today from Dropsite News, had installed and maintained security systems at Epstein's apartment. I'm just going to quote directly from this. The Israeli government installed security equipment and controlled access to a Manhattan apartment managed by convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, according to a set of emails recently released by the Department of Justice. So this equipment was installed starting in early 2016 at his residence, where former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak frequently stayed for stretches at a time. The security operation was called Ehud's apartment. Not ambiguous at all. It was in place for at least 2 years. Emails from the DOJ disclosure show, with officials from the Israeli permanent mission to the United Nations corresponding regularly with Epstein's staff regarding security. The apartment was technically owned by a company connected to Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, but was effectively controlled by Epstein himself. So basically, Israel took over security at Epstein's home. They were literally in charge of security, who's coming, who's going. Watch Ryan Grimm from Dropsite News explain this reporting.
The Israeli permanent mission at the UN was responsible for security at Jeffrey Epstein's apartment. That's according. Yes, so that's according to emails that we found in the files. So
I have been reliably told that you are an anti-Semite if you look at all into Jeffrey Epstein's connections to Ehud Barak or Israel, Ryan. So you just tread carefully.
So what's probably going on here? So this is related to Ehud Barak staying for such long extended periods of time in his apartment, which undercuts Ehud Barak's previous argument that I barely know the guy, I have no relationship to him. He was staying so much in the apartment that the Israelis literally took over security for the apartment. So the maids and any guests that went in and out of the apartment had to go through background checks and had to be confirmed and coordinated with the Israeli consulate at the UN.
Okay.
I mean, that suggests to me that whatever the United States government has in terms of evidence, the Israeli government has other things. Because we know that the United States did not actually do a proper discovery and a raid on Epstein had notice about the raid on his house. So there is more in the hands of foreign governments, we can be sure. We should have always been sure. But this suggests to me that that's the nail in the coffin of that theory.
DJ Holindica in our chat room says, pretty sure Israel is the first who made the USBs. That said, I think that they have a backdoor to all USB connections.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know that.
I don't know about that. Thank you for that. All right, we got Whitney Webb is going to be joining us next to talk about Les Wexner and so much more. All of her reporting. Whitney hasn't done an interview in months, although if you've been online and you see like all these fake videos that pop up that purport to show like Whitney Webb and her face and it's like a thumbnail with Whitney, it's like, no, these are all fake AI slop videos. So she hasn't done an interview in months. And taking care of her family. So we're thrilled this is the first interview that she's done, I believe, in 2026. So again, if you see all these AI slop videos out there, that's not her.
Right. So we're going to go to the original source, one of the first and most thorough researchers on this in just a moment. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at Lear Capital, because, of course, you hate when people say, I told you so. Sorry, but we did tell you to buy gold and silver a long time ago. We started working with Lear over 3 years ago because obviously the government continues to print money, go to war, devalue the U.S. dollar, all on the backs of the working American people. And because of that, the value of tangible assets has gone up. Real estate, gold, silver, all of these are asset classes that hold their value because the government cannot devalue them. So if you didn't trust us, it's not too late. Experts are still predicting even higher prices for gold and silver. So let our friends at Lear Capital teach you how to invest in this asset class, no matter what you have to start with. If you have some cash or if you have a retirement account, they can teach you. If you want to hold notes, if you want to hold the actual physical bars, they can help you with that. If you want to hold it in an IRA, they will teach you that you can, no question is too dumb to get started. So go to LearRedacted.com. You can receive up to $20,000 in free bonus medals with a qualified purchase. You also can get a free investor guide, which is like a study guide. But if you're not someone who wants to study a study guide, you can just keep them on the phone. They literally will just talk to you until the cows come home so that you are comfortable learning this mode of investment. So again, Morgan Stanley even changed their 60-40 portfolio to 60-20-20 to include 20% in precious metals. So again, even with markets hitting all-time highs, this is really an asset class to learn. So go to LearRedacted.com. Let them help you. One more time, that's LearRedacted.com. Well, Jeffrey Epstein's longtime patron and financial backer, Leslie Wexner, was finally brought before lawmakers on Wednesday, but not in Congress, in a congressional hearing room. They went to his house. You know what? We'll come to you. Don't travel to Washington. Most people, when they get a congressional deposition, they have to get their happy ass into a congressional chair, but not billionaires, not if you own Victoria.
They're different.
Yeah, totally different. So they went to Ohio to conduct a closed door deposition about his decades-long relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. No Republicans attended in person. Okay. Why? There was no public testimony. Now we're getting small bits of this in video clips, but we didn't for a while. So yeah, must be nice to be, so rich and connected. Now remember, he was Epstein's main source of funds for years. When asked if he'd ever, even though we now have proof that he was named by the Justice Department as a co-conspirator, he was asked if he'd ever been interviewed by the FBI or the DOJ or any law enforcement. He said, no. I'm brand new here. No, I mean, I've had people say my name a bunch, but I've been living my best life. Here is his statement he released. It's very much, I'm an old man. I have this nice family. I'm too old for this kind of thing. Epstein only had power of attorney because I was too busy with my very important empire that was started with bootstraps and shoelaces and a couple coins on the floor. Basically, that's the story. Okay, well, for years, investigative journalist Whitney Webb has argued that Wexner was not a peripheral figure. This is not brand new to her. It is brand new to the media. And so we're so lucky to have her join us today. I believe this is one of your first interviews since all of this document dump. So thank you so much. It's great to see you. How do you feel about Lex Wexner getting this, billionaire treatment?
Great to see you.
Yeah, well, nice to see you all too, and thanks for having me. Yeah, so it's really not, it should be pretty telling to everyone that he had Congress come to him instead of having to go to Congress. Exactly how Leslie Wexner operates. He's the richest man in Ohio. As I've documented in my books and a series of articles, he's been linked to crimes that have been covered up by the Columbus Police Department, leaving murders, among other things, unsolved to allow him to continue to engage in the impunity that he has enjoyed pretty much ever since he began engaging in criminal activity, which, as far as I can tell, at least goes back to at some point in the early 1980s. Around the time he was, becoming a billionaire, which I believe was in 1985 or so. And I mean, honestly, Congress has said that they're going to release the deposition and videos of it and are making it like a big show, that there's been accountability because Wexner, who was named was named a co-conspirator, and they redacted that. That he's finally been interviewed in connection with his role in Jeffrey Epstein's network. I mean, it's just honestly bonkers. I think what we can anticipate to see in that video, if and when it is released, is a lot of softball questions, Wexner denying everything, and then being like, okay, thanks for your time.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for flying out. I hope you had a nice lunch here at my mansion in Ohio, but I'm not going to Washington, D.C. anytime soon. Do you think that there will be any prosecutions? We've seen now a former PM in Norway arrested. We have Prince Andrew arrested in the UK. I think those are the only
He was released.
Oh, he was released? Okay.
He was released after 11 to 12 hours, I believe.
Okay. So,
yes.
But my question is, that's the only two. One of them's been released. Do you think we're going to see any other actual arrests in the United States, prosecutions?
Yeah, I don't anticipate Leslie Wexner being arrested at any point. He is far too powerful, and his money is everywhere. And honestly, he has extremely deep ties to numerous officials in the Israeli government through his philanthropies. He focused pretty much the bulk of the Wexner Foundation on training up prominent figures, first in the U.S. And the Jewish community in particular. And now those Wexner fellows, essentially run AIPAC. It has an extremely close relationship with AIPAC, obviously one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the United States. And the other side of his leadership training via his foundation has been with Israeli public officials who have, these relationships as a result of that. With Wexner, and I doubt, given, AIPAC's influence, as well as, what you touched on earlier with Israel's role with Epstein, it just does not seem particularly likely in any capacity. And I would also refer to the fact that one of the things that will never be investigated is the role of Epstein and also Wexner in this scandal that was covered up in the mid-1990s under the Clinton administration. That's remembered today as Chinagate, but was obviously a lot larger than that. It was a smuggling operation that utilized Southern Air Transport, which you'll remember as the CIA front that was used to smuggle drugs and weapons during the Iran-Contra era. After the Iran-Contra era, the Iran-Contra crowd utilized the same network again to facilitate Chinagate, and they used Southern Air Transport, which came into direct connection to be dominant in that same period of time, was dominated by Leslie Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein, and they had it relocated not that far from New Albany, Ohio, just to run their cargo, ostensibly for the limited, from the Rickenbacker Airport in Ohio to Hong Kong. And people like Ohio's Inspector General called it the Mayor Lansky route because he argued they were affiliated with the mob. And Columbus PD, just a few years prior, had produced a document linking Leslie Wexner to the mob and his network in the murder of the lawyer for the Limited, Arthur Shapiro. And in that document, they detailed extensive ties of Wexner to organized crime affiliates. And as I noted in my book, citing Catherine Austin Fitts, she was at an event and overheard a government official say that Leslie Wexner was one of the main launderers for organized crime cash flows in the United States. And this is something, as I've detailed in my book, that Epstein was very involved with this network that involves organized crime and intelligence, specifically in allowing them to illicitly move funds and in money laundering. And so, arguably Epstein was a front for that for Leslie Wexner. And this is stuff that they absolutely will, they just can't touch with a 10-foot pole without massive reverberations, for the national security state of the U.S., which has been beholden to this, shadow government of sorts in which Epstein operated, but he was a middleman for it. He was not the head of it. And so until there's an investigation into the people behind Epstein, including Wexner, and justice there, I think most of what we're going to end up seeing is going to be superficial. And maybe more will be admitted or discovered in these Epstein files, but don't expect the government to necessarily do anything about it.
Right. Superficial is the right word, because it seems like, and we don't have the full tape, but Democrats just were like, what did you know? Nothing? Okay, that's fine. We're going to go talk to the cameras now. So they didn't actually come with details of, why'd you kick people out for asking about this power of attorney? Why would he have more rights than you to your estate? How come he can buy islands and you just kind of don't know, which is what, you and I might come with a lot more homework and say, explain these things. And they let him get away with like, I just don't know. I don't know. So why do you, Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say a lot of Wexner attempted to wash his hands of this years ago, saying that they disentangled themselves in 2007. And since then, it's now been shown that they were communicating a year after that. So now it's proven that he was lying. But basically, the excuse he gave is that Epstein embezzled money from the foundation, but they never showed any proof of that.
Right.
Money was moved around.
He's like, I'll never get an accounting.
But there's no evidence that Epstein embezzled it. Yeah. They never charged him. They were, so if you want to believe the Wexners that Epstein embezzled $42 million, they were just like, okay, that's fine. Bye. Keep the $42 million.
Friend of the show, Derek Brose, just wrote a piece about Les Wexner's very bad week, because not only he had to testify in front of Congress, but also in the OSU sexual abuse scandal. And there's a whole hornet's nest there tied to, of course, his brands and OSU. I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Well, he's one of the main donors to OSU. I think their medical school is named after him. He's been on the board of overseers or trustees of OSU for a long time. I'm not sure of his specific connection to the sex scandal, but I think it's worth looking into, considering that not only do you have, for example, as we have just discussed, his connection to Jeffrey Epstein, but other executives that worked under L Brands for Wexner, including, I believe, the former head of Abercrombie and Fitch, have been charged with sex crimes against minors. So why is this a repeating pattern around Wexner money?
Right.
Such a good point.
Now, I'm very curious, because I only in these files learned about Dennis Hirsch, who took over for Wexner. And he said, look, Dennis Hirsch had the same power of attorney, the same. Is that true? And do we know anything about continued involvement, or is there a credible story that it ended with Epstein?
What do you mean ended with Epstein? What ended with
any
Epstein?
kind of, suspicion, any cloud of suspicion ended around Les Wexner when he sent Epstein packing in 2007.
You mean in 2007, Wexner stopped engaging in any and all potential criminal activity?
And so right. That is his story, is I was never connected to any criminal activity. And then Dennis Hirsch comes in, and then there's no cloud of suspicion ever again. So I don't know much about Dennis Hirsch. He says in this deposition, in this statement, that Dennis Hirsch had the same power over my estate that Epstein always had once I replaced him. So what do you know about Dennis Hirsch, and is that true? And he's dead now.
I haven't actually followed Wexner's finances extensively beyond the connection with Epstein. So that ends around the time of Epstein's first arrest. And obviously from that point on, Epstein rebranded as a tech investor and got involved with people, a lot of the big tech people like Peter Thiel, and was moving money around for people like Leon Black and Bill Gates and what have you. So seemingly moved on from him in that period. But given, a lot of his activities earlier on from that period, which I have studied extensively, I don't really anticipate that a lot of Wexner's activities that are less than legal would have discontinued just because he replaced Epstein with someone else.
Right. All on the up and up now.
Yeah, it's all good. You've been reporting on the Epstein files for years, or Jeffrey Epstein specifically for years. What do you, since we haven't had a chance to talk with you since these files dropped and you haven't done any interviews about it, what is genuinely new to you in these files that you maybe didn't know before? What changes the story? And what's just like maybe repackaged material that you've known for a long time?
So, I haven't had a chance to, it's like millions of files, so I can't really speak to the whole dump and say, but it's definitely corroborated a lot of things that I've reported in the past. That's Israeli intelligence stuff. I've been working on a story on and off since 2023 that I'm actually about to release, but it was about this sheik who has now been noted as having been redacted by the DOJ, who was sending torture videos to Epstein. I was following that guy for a while, and then Drop Site published emails between them last fall, and now there's even more that are just extremely disturbing this time. So that really opens up that story even more, and I'm actually kind of glad that I ended up waiting a couple of years to publish it, just because it'll be more comprehensive now, because that's a story that really goes back to the Bush administration, and not a lot has been said about Epstein in his time at the Bush administration. Allegedly, the Sweetheart deal, received approval from higher ups in the Bush administration. According to Nick Bryant, it was either former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales or it was George W. Bush himself. And if you look at that particular relationship, it was going on in the Bush administration and may have had a role in the Bushes wanting, or Gonzales potentially wanting to keep the heat, or help keep the heat off of Jeffrey Epstein. But there's a lot of things, and it's hard to cover them all, because for a long time, it should have been pretty clear to people that have followed this case closely that there are a lot of different angles, because Epstein had a lot of interest and directed money to a lot of different avenues. So one example is transhumanism. Another is his interest in eugenics. These are reflected in the emails that have been released, his interest in cryptocurrency and stable coins and Bitcoin, things of that nature. Really any other angle you want to talk about from, the period these emails cover is reflected in there. But what's interesting is that there aren't a lot of emails from the early 2000s when some of the stuff with the Bush administration that I'll be publishing a report on soon were going on. And some of these new releases paint that in a more interesting light than maybe, say, before their release. So, again, I think people are going to continue to find things, because there's, 3 million files or so to dig through. But ultimately, what's going on in this case is you have Epstein fronting for a broader network. And so keeping the focus on Epstein, it's important, obviously, to understand what he was doing, but we have to understand, too, and what I've endeavored to show is that he was fronting for a larger group that still very much have their claws over the U.S. government, and obviously the future of the U.S. and much more. And so we should pay attention to that, and also not become so distracted by searching for things in the files that we, ignore the fact that, for example, Israel, who is very involved with Epstein and allegedly used contraband and blackmail to manipulate U.S. policy, has been trying for decades to get the U.S. to go to war with Iran on that behalf. That could very well happen. So let's not forget to pay attention to other things and be, fall into get distracted at a time when, the people that Epstein helped serve, among other groups, might be finally getting what they want at a major cost for American lives and money, and obviously other civilian lives, among other things. I guess there's a lot more I could say too, but ultimately, I think there's a lot more needs to be done in investigating Epstein's activities as it relates to finances. There's a lot of ties to various financial crises, efforts to short currencies around the world. He was a known Forex trader. He worked with a lot of currency traders and had connections to them. People like Jimmy Goldsmith, for example. And others that were referred to by the New York Times in the 90s as a cabal of, currency traders that were basically destroying whole economies. And pretty much everyone in that cabal has ties to the Rothschild banking dynasty, which Epstein in these recent files acknowledge he represents. But that's quite clear that was the case. If you read my book, Robert Maxwell openly fronted for them, among other interests. And so if we don't follow these threads, as I've been saying, away from Epstein and higher up, he was being puppeteered by people, and he was obviously of use to them. I think the narrative that Epstein was an idiot and all of this, maybe he didn't use good grammar in emails, but he was obviously sought out for his abilities in, illicit finance and, smuggling, among other things. So I think, it's important to keep all of that in mind if we actually want to understand what was going in here and have any meaningful pursuit of justice.
Yeah. A lot of things you just said there, and I want to unpack. So, let's just talk about this. So Natalie wants to ask you about the Clintons, which we will, the upcoming depositions. We'll get there in a minute.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I want to follow up with you on the Sultan story, because you said you've been working on that since like 2023 on bin Sulayem, who now has stepped down. Big ties with that Epstein scandal, obviously in Dubai, and their friendship there. So maybe we could dive more deeply into that. And then I also wanted to, there's a lot I want to talk about here. So, and any kind of
one question.
I know, I'm just sorry. There's so many people firing questions here in our chat room as too. So take the Sultan stuff here. What do we know about this guy? How dirty was he, and what was he involved with Epstein? Maybe you can unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because I would like the article to come out, because I like having my sources publicly available when I go out and publicly talk about stuff. But essentially, this was a guy that almost successfully took over every major port in the United States. And it was facilitated to the outrage of Congress by top people in the Bush administration, some of whom later engaged in the Epstein cover-up. And so if you've been following some of this recent reporting in the emails, of Epstein's relationship with this guy, they say the earliest they can date it to is 2006. There is photographic evidence it happened earlier, at the time that this group was lobbying these top Bush officials to sign off on this movement. It was really an acquisition of the existing port operator by Dubai Ports World, which is what bin Sulayem was managing. And intimately involved in this is a guy that I was initially following and was a source of my article initially, which is Andrew Farkas, who's long been known as Andrew Cuomo's money man, as it were. And a lot has come out about his relationship with Epstein as well, but he's been a frequent business partner of this guy and connected him with Trump, for example, because with a DP World affiliated real estate firm, Trump did a lot of his Dubai-based and UAE-based building, including on the Palm Islands, which this guy ultimately controlled. And it gets crazier than that, if you can believe it. For example, Farkas has intimate ties to the missing HUD money that Catherine Austin Fitts has talked about at length for decades. It's pretty much provable that he was involved in siphoning a lot of it off, and then gets intimately involved with this particular network, including Epstein, who was a known money launderer for the Iran-Contra crowd. in this, shadow government of sorts. And then, as we know from the later releases, these were they were very involved with Epstein's activities at the Virgin Islands. The Sheik helped him purchase his island when he normally wouldn't have been able to. This team of him and Farkas intimately involved in USVI stuff, even beyond Epstein, co-owned a marina with Epstein that he needed to control in order to traffic girls to and from his island. And also, as I'll be reporting, a very disturbing proprietary telecom system that wouldn't have been accessible to anyone but them. So there's a lot of very disturbing things going on there. And I would add, too, that Andrew Farkas was listed as a reference by Jeffrey Epstein for one of his USVI companies, along with Jess Staley, which was apparently the jumping off point to investigate Jess Staley as part of this now settled court case between the USVI and JP Morgan. But if they went after Jess Staley for that, why didn't they go after Farkas when he was, listed in the same spot? Yeah. And I would argue it's because he is way too close. Farkas is way too close to top very high ranking figures in the Trump administration that are intimately involved in Middle Eastern affairs.
Right. Jeez.
Maybe you can unpack that piece a little bit more, the Middle Eastern affairs piece, as we barrel towards war with Iran, probably on March 1st, according to sources we've been speaking to. Jared Kushner buying up, Gaza, and then the Israeli piece. I know people, and I want you to speak for yourself, people have conflated, what you have said about Israel and the Mossad connections and CIA, and people like Whitney Webb says he's a Mossad agent, and you have to come out and correct people on that. So now that we hear about the Israeli connections in the apartment, the security system, and all of that, what can you say about the Middle Eastern Israeli connections with Epstein now?
And that are still inside the Trump White House that you just said. That's fascinating.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. So, regarding Andrew Farkas, the main connection, the closest connection there, he's obviously close with Trump himself, but also he's very intimately involved with the Kushner family. And a lot of the money behind Kushner family real estate deals actually traces back to Andrew Farkas, not the Kushners themselves. So people have argued that Kushner has an outsized influence on the Trump administration. So if true, I doubt any meaningful pursuit of Andrew Farkas would happen, even though he was involved in the infrastructure for the trafficking itself, among other things. And as far as Epstein's role to the Middle East in general, so it depends on what Middle Eastern country you're talking about. There's obviously the UAE ties and his involvement with Saudi Arabia, specifically Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince. He was involved in advising their sovereign wealth funds, apparently of both countries. His ties to the Saudis allegedly go back to the 1980s or so. If you may remember, he was found... one of his residents that was raided, because not all of them were, contained an Austrian passport that had a lot of stamps for Saudi Arabia and listed Saudi Arabia as an address. Actually, this ties in kind of to the Prince Andrew story a little bit, because in this period of time, Epstein was allegedly the mentee of an arms dealer named Douglas Leese, who was leading the representation of the UK's BAE Systems in creating, which would later win the Al Yamaha deal, which is the basis for UK-Saudi military relationship. And it was a hugely significant arms deal for Britain and BAE Systems. And actually, Prince Andrew, in that role as a trade representative, would later step in to prevent investigating the legality of aspects of that deal, and was also a big, salesperson globally for weapons, for BAE Systems particularly, which, again, is significant in that it ties back directly to, Epstein's own mentor in arms smuggling. And, bin Salman himself, when he first came out, it was a big charm offensive, right? But then he started promoting like this post-oil vision for Saudi Arabia, and a lot of the things he was promoting openly involved things that were funded by Epstein. You may remember, for example, he gave Sophia the robot citizenship and that robot was funded with Epstein money in part. And the people involved there did that. So, and they've reported, since 2019, but I think the photographs are now available, that Epstein had pictures with prominent people from, the Gulf countries, including Mohammed bin Salman, including Emirati sheiks. And another thing to note there, as far as the UAE ties go, is that Epstein had a relationship with the bank BCCI in the 1980s, and potentially up until it collapsed with 1991, which was very important to this network in which he operated. And BCCI was investigated to an extent, not as fully as I would have liked, by the U.S. Senate. And there's a U.S. Senate report on BCCI you can read. And if you go to the end and sort of the appendix, they leave as an uninvestigated lead the fact that this bank, which was basically a CIA shadow bank, was running a sex trafficking operation very similar in terms of how it functioned to what Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were doing. But in the Senate report itself, it says that these mainly girls, many of them were prepubescent girls, were being basically pimped out to Emirati sheiks, and some of them would return with extreme bodily injuries from the encounter. Please go read that yourself, because these are family lines, the way this stuff operates in the UAE. So it's very possible that this sheik that Epstein got involved with later is like the son of, or maybe even one of the people that engaged in that kind of activity with BCCI. It was never investigated. So again, this stuff needs to be very properly investigated, and there's been a pattern of cover-up for a long time. Who covered up BCCI in 1991? It was then Attorney General William Barr, who came back in the first Trump administration when Epstein was offed.
Yeah.
Covering stuff up again.
Right. Okay, where should we go? So
we can get into Israel now if you want. Sorry,
well,
I just felt like
yeah,
more people know about
but that's
Israel
a tangled web.
And the other stuff.
That is important. I think that's not unrelated, because this drop site news revelation that Israel was, running security for the apartment that Epstein was in, and Ehud Barak was there. It tells us unequivocally that there are foreign governments that have intelligence that our government does not. So we would never see things in our own justice.gov/Epstein, things that may be in the hands of Israel or Iran. Even Iran is saying, we have some evidence of U.S. corruption too. We don't know what to make of that. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, if Israel has stuff, they're obviously not going to share it, but they have a history of doing this stuff, even to their own operatives. So as an example, like Robert Maxwell, he was filmed and Israel filmed him having sex with, a variety of women when he was in Israel domestically visiting for various purposes while he was working for Israeli intelligence. They kept files on their own. So if they do that to their own, I think the Epstein case shows that they definitely do that to other people as well. And as I've noted in my work, this type of behavior in which Epstein engaged in is not anomalous, and a lot of governments have done this for a long time, particularly this network, which Epstein was involved in, which again, I've argued for a long time is transnational in scope, but involves, probably most closely the U.S., Israel, and then former Soviet bloc countries, as well as Russia. And a lot of that is thanks to people like Robert Maxwell and the people that he worked with. To sort of tether that all together, if you will. But ultimately, the goal was to globalize organized crime. I argue it's at this point defined itself into a cartel, and they're really calling the shots, as it were, with a lot of this stuff. So one of the ways that they've done that historically is through recording people and compromising positions. So obviously, I can refer you to my books, because I unpack a lot of people in this network going back to the 1940s, engaging in that type of activity. But another thing I argue is that Epstein, the type of sex blackmail activity he was engaging in was is no longer needed to blackmail people. You can do all of that stuff digitally now, and I think it's no coincidence that I argue that Epstein told Ehud Barak to check out Palantir, which I argue in my book is really you don't need an Epstein blackmail style operation if you have Palantir operating. And there's a straight line, as I've noted in other past articles, from the Promise software scandal, which involved Israel, the CIA, this exact network, including Robert Maxwell, among other figures that pop up repeatedly in this story, all the way through Palantir's creation as a rebranding of the Bush era Total Information Awareness.
How dirty?
Program.
How dirty is Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, and their connections with Epstein in all of this?
So I'm obviously no friend of Peter Thiel. I've been very critical of him for some time. Back in 2019, I reported about his co-investment with Jeffrey Epstein in Carbine, previously Reporty, which was headed up by Ehud Barak, and he chaired the board, but they have since rebranded after the initial Epstein story. But that has not stopped them from taking over a litany of U.S. 911 emergency call systems, which they now control, and they're run by IDF people, even though they put a few token Americans on their board. It's still an IDF project, arguably a front company if you look at the other types of companies that Ehud Barak was creating with Israeli intelligence veterans in the same period that he created Reporty, now Carbine. Peter Thiel, now we have over the past year fresh documentation showing Thiel and Epstein's direct involvement in making those investments happen. But Carbine is a direct way to create this type of surveillance system in which Palantir also excels. It no longer says this on its website, but when I reported on them, they had a functionality on their program where if you're calling 911 within a district controlled by this company, they can harvest any and all data off of your smartphone if you use one, and basically create a pre-crime system determining if you or someone near you will call 911 and commit a crime at some point in the future. And again, Palantir is built around and was always envisioned to have the same pre-crime functionality, and has developed obvious and very clear ties to the state of Israel, potentially given this new audio release that may have been forged by Epstein himself, which is certainly of great concern. It's absolutely crazy. But Peter Thiel has been asked about his relationship with Epstein several times. He is a liar. And a lot of these people, I should point out, that have denied their closeness to Epstein, including figures in big tech like Elon Musk or Ehud Barak himself, or really any of these people, or Wexner, who we started with, they deny, and then proof comes out, even though what's been released is estimated to be 2% of all of what the U.S. government has on Epstein, 2%. And we know how many of these people are liars. Why are we believing them at their depositions when they're asked these softball questions and they're just like, I didn't know anything bad was happening. Why are we believing them? It's crazy. So anyway, sorry, I got a little off track there.
Well, that's why I'm not looking forward to the Clintons' deposition, because how hard is it to just play dumb? That's what politicians do.
They're great at it.
That's what to expect. There's even an email in the, Epstein's like, oh, I have to give $1 million to the Clintons. Okay, I'll do it. What is this for again? He doesn't even know, right? And Hillary Clinton is out front saying, no, there's a lot of people involved. So can you discuss what you expect from the Clintons and, what we know about the Clintons that is not being discussed by the media?
Yeah, so I think we can expect similar stuff to what Wexner did with the Clinton deposition. I doubt it will go too deep. Again, and I think, as has been the media coverage of Clinton this entire time, it will only focus on Clinton after he left the office of U.S. president. It will not focus on anything before then, even though Jeffrey Epstein went to the Clinton White House 17 times, and maybe more, because there is also the case where a lot of Clinton White House visitor logs have obviously fake names on them to cover up the identities of the people who were coming and going. I'm sorry, but 15 visits to the Clinton White House by Donald Duck, I don't really think that was Donald Duck in the same period, so it could potentially be more. No, I mean, that's literally a real thing. So it could potentially be more, but that's 17 confirmed visits we know about. Every time he went, he had a different woman on his arm. And they were of age, though. I should point that out. But, you know, this is what Epstein learned from his weapons dealer friends in the 1980s. People like Adnan Khashoggi, for example, who on his yacht would have a harem of women, it was called, basically butter up top corporate CEOs and government officials so that he could, you know, grease the wheels for his arms deals and his business. Epstein was really no different, just he was running more businesses than arguably Khashoggi was for a different set of employers, and some of the same employers as well when you count Israeli intelligence and the CIA in the mix. So again, there's going to be no scrutiny of these 1990s ties or these visits. A big reason why is the man that Epstein was meeting most of those times, Mark Middleton, because Mark Middleton was central to this aforementioned Chinagate scandal involving Southern Air Transport. He, when he was questioned in his role in Chinagate, pled the fifth 22 times, and then Clinton left office, 9/11 happened, and no one ever investigated Chinagate again. Even though it was basically well, I would argue one of the reasons for that is that it intimately, even though it's called Chinagate, it intimately involved Israel basically selling sensitive U.S. military technology using this Iran-Contra network to the Chinese military. Obviously, an outrageous scandal for U.S. national security, but that shows you how influential this network is, and how, you know, a lot of stuff about a China, let's give up all our rights for a Chinese arms race with AI is a complete bullcrap narrative, among other things. But basically, Mark Middleton is, you know, we know that Epstein ended up dead in a prison cell. We know Jean-Luc Brunel ended up dead in a prison cell. The same year that Jean-Luc Brunel died in a prison cell, Mark Middleton died extremely suspiciously, even for other members of the Clinton kill list, as it's called. He allegedly wrapped around his neck an extension cord, hung himself, and then managed to shoot himself with a shotgun in the chest that was discovered 30 feet away, even though investigators initially said there was no weapon at the scene. And then immediately after, a judge sealed all photographic and other evidence of the crime so it would never be released to stop the spread of harmful conspiracy theories.
Right, a gun that's 30 feet away.
You ask the Clintons about Mark Middleton, you will see how insane this all is, and they will not go there, because obviously if they did, it would probably implicate Leslie Wexner, as well as a lot of other people in this network that have sold out U.S. national security, you know, to ostensible adversaries for decades.
What
With
about
Israel's direct involvement, our supposed greatest ally. And one of the reasons this was happening is that arguably the most influential billionaire manipulating Israel's security complex apparatus in that period was a billionaire named Shaul Eisenberg that had a lot of ties to the Chinese government, and it brokered their ties to Israel's national security state in the late 70s, and helped bring Robert Maxwell, among other people, to Mossad. He was a major operator. And so, you know, there's no real scrutiny of that relationship. But I would argue this goes even further. This goes to something that Samuel Pisar, Robert Maxwell's longtime confidant and lawyer, and a co-conspirator in some of these things I'm talking about, openly told Congress in the early 70s that what was happening was the end of the relevance of the nation state and the rise of what he called the trans-ideological corporation, where multinational Western corporations were getting in business with state-owned corporations in China and Russia, the communist bloc, basically, and we're building a network, an economic network that would supersede the national governments around the world and would basically take over the world. And he was asked by Congress if this was bad, and he was like, not really. And he said this in the early 70s. And he, along with people like the heads of IBM, people from PepsiCo, people from some of the biggest corporations in the United States, openly created committees to make this happen. Gosh. And he probably had intelligence ties. He represented Steve Jobs for Apple, and Steve Jobs was like, I don't know if he works for the CIA or the KGB. Probably both, because if you look at Robert Maxwell, he was definitely involved with the KGB among other groups. He worked with KGB officers to spirit gold out of the Soviet Union, and a lot of these guys were involved in capital flight from Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. They funneled a lot of it to Israel, where they helped get and install Russian mobsters like Simeon Mogilevich, get them Israeli passports so they could penetrate the U.S. financial system. And our current president had involvement with some of those characters through his real estate deals and helped them launder money. So I don't really think we're going to see meaningful prosecution of these groups with the current crowd that's in charge.
Before we move
They've been on the take.
Before we move on from the Clintons, the Clinton Foundation stands out to me as a major question, something to focus on. Do you think the Epstein's ties to the Clinton Foundation and how it was used, whether it was for sex trafficking operations around the world, medicine, et cetera? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the Clinton Foundation, I would argue, was largely set up. Major aspects of it were provably set up by Epstein. That's particularly true for the Clinton Health Access Initiative, and a lot of its work in Africa with AIDS, which obviously coincides with a lot of vaccination policy. And at the same time that Clinton set up his foundation, Bill Gates set up his foundation. They collaborate together on those things. And Epstein has also obviously had an interest in these types of networks as well. For health, they say. But obviously, in the COVID era, we became a lot more skeptical of those types of quote unquote philanthropies. And obviously, Bill Gates, as well as Epstein himself, as particularly revealed by some of these new releases, but it was known before, have an outsized interest in eugenics and also transhumanism, which is the modern rebranding of eugenics. Even some of the people that used to run the British Eugenics Society, like Julian Huxley, authored texts in the mid 20th century talking about how transhumanism was the future of eugenics, and this is how they'd sell it to a new generation. These people are intimately involved with a lot of this stuff. And, Epstein was intimately involved in those aspects, but we have to go back to Epstein being intimately involved also in illicit cash flows, which the Clintons absolutely love and have loved for a long time, ever since Clinton was governor of Arkansas through the presidency and after. And so, Clinton Foundation has obviously been dogged by what were once rumors, but thanks to WikiLeaks became proven that it was basically a pay-to-play scam, and that they were taking money and then returning political favors when Hillary Clinton was, Secretary of State, or they thought she might even be president, right? And then after, she lost to Trump in 2016, it dried up essentially. But also, in addition to the other philanthropies, you have the Clinton Global Initiative, which was allegedly Epstein's idea. According to his defense lawyers, he was part of the core team that developed the concept for the Clinton Global Initiative, which is kind of like a Clinton brokered Davos, World Economic Forum style meeting. And they passed money around to Ghislaine Maxwell's Terramar, for example, among other things. And so Epstein was obviously very sought out in the not-profit world, arguably because he was very good at tax shelters, and a lot of these billionaires want to get tax write-offs or not have to pay money in tax. And so setting up these philanthropies the right way, when Epstein's background, going back to his time at Bear Stearns, was in tax evasion, obviously I think that points to why they were so interested in having him be involved in setting up their nonprofits. And there's also the fact that you had Epstein, I think it was Bill Gates, wanted to talk to Epstein about getting a Nobel Prize, apparently because he had influence over the Nobel Prize Committee. So, it went even beyond nonprofits. And so a lot of this world that the public has been shown about these do-gooder nonprofits and these do-gooder philanthropists, it's, Epstein was an expert in money laundering. He also became an expert in reputation laundering for these billionaires, most of which are criminals and some of whom are provably connected to organized crime.
When I was just leaving CBS in about 2010, 2011, I was asked to pitch a panel to the Clinton Global Initiative as a tech expert, because I had been at CNET and CBS as a tech reporter. And I pitched something. I had just read Jaron Lanier about fighting your addiction to social media. And I pitched something about not being addicted to social media, and they're like, nope, get out. They didn't want that. We want them to be addicted to social media. We are trying to entrap them. So goodbye. So I never got asked to speak, thankfully. That's just a little anecdote I thought you'd enjoy. Okay.
That is interesting.
Yeah. Could
I ask a question? Can I ask a...
Go ahead, Philip.
So, so I'm like listening to all these ties and then just thinking, you know, like with Kash Patel coming out, like basically saying Epstein trafficked to no one. It's very clear that the people involved in this, the power behind it, want the fall guy to be Epstein, and nobody's buying it. So is there somebody else of equal level that they can turn and point to? Who's going to be the next fall guy? They can be, actually, this guy is really important in this. Somebody has to take the fall. And since Epstein can't do it because that's not working, like, is there somebody else that they can kind of like point it at him? And could it be Les Wexner? Or is he still too powerful? Or is it just they just have to stick with the whole Epstein traffic to no one?
Yeah, I think Wexner's way too powerful. I think the risk of trying to go after someone at the same level of Epstein is that they might talk. Right. So like Jean-Luc Brunel was apparently, sorry, my glasses keep being super wonky, was in talks with to speak to U.S. prosecutors. And then he about Epstein, and then disappeared. And then he ends up dead in a jail cell. You know, people that have information that could potentially incriminate beyond the spectrum they want to keep the public focused on, you know, that's threatening. And so if someone realizes they're becoming the fall guy, they may try and squeal, or they may try point the finger at someone else. That opens up a whole nother level of risk. And they had been building, you know, ever since Epstein died in 2019, this narrative that he was the lone baddie, and thank goodness he's dead. Just like Bill Gates said when he was interviewed about it a few years ago, well, he's dead now, so it doesn't matter. Right. And so I think they're going to keep running with that, honestly, as long as they possibly can. Because I think otherwise it opens up, whether you go above or, you know, at the same level, varying degrees of risk are there. I mean, maybe they might try and go for someone that worked for Epstein, ones that aren't already protected by the sweetheart deal, the non-prosecution agreement. So you can forget about his executive assistant, Leslie Groff, that helped him plan a lot of this stuff. But maybe someone like his lawyers, but that should be protected by client lawyer privilege, right? So I don't know, maybe his brother, Mark Epstein, who's been kind of given a pass by a lot of the people that have interviewed him, given that he owned these buildings that were bugged by Israeli security, government security, and full of these trafficked girls. Which, by the way, in terms of, you know, the amount of victims, I mean, we don't really know how many victims there were, but it was probably a lot given the volume of girls that were known to be in those apartments. And a lot of them were from places that don't get talked about a lot. So the most well-known victims that we know about are Americans, but a lot of them were from Eastern Europe and Brazil. How many Brazilian and Eastern European
there's a
girls
9-year-old referenced. Yeah, 9-year-old Brazilian, very cute or sexy or something like that.
Yeah, and some are from France. You know, I mean, this was obviously something that was global in scope, and there's really been no interest in disentangling the global aspects of even just the sex trafficking operation. But again,
and the past tense that we're using, though, suggests, I feel like it's still going on, and we don't, like, how could we pull the thread to know how it's still going on? Because like you said, Epstein was not the ringleader.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I think that a lot of this, at least with respect to blackmail, has moved to the digital realm because they compile profiles on you based of your data that are scraped from everything you do online. And that ends up in a Palantir database accessible to every single U.S. intelligence agency. There's 18 of them, and Palantir contracts with every single one. So on the other side of the blackmail angle, obviously Epstein didn't do this just for blackmail. I mean, he was a trafficker of many things. He was known for moving money from place to place, arms from place to place, and underage women, and also above age women that were young adults from place to place. So that is essentially the role he occupied. And so to understand again how in terms of this of the sex trafficking thing, obviously there was part of him that did it because he personally and sexually benefited from that. And there are emails following his conviction showing that he was still talking about women that were either from these places he had drawn upon before and engaged predatorially and criminally with them. So he may not have done it at the same scale he did it before, because some of the agencies, for example, that he had used once he became, by his own definition, radioactive after his first arrest, it was harder to publicly do business with Epstein. But he obviously had no problem finding women to traffic after then, and girls. So this is obviously something that people of that power level, if you want to call it that, are able to engage in if it is their proclivity. And obviously Epstein is not the only billionaire pervert in the United States. And so a lot of these people with access to money have obviously probably been able to access this because they've been doing it for decades and decades and decades and decades, and oftentimes with state protection because they get involved with intelligence agencies.
Our guest is Whitney Webb. We got some new video that just was released from the GOP Oversight Committee, and I want to play. This is Les Wexner speaking to that they just released, and where he's claiming that Jeffrey Epstein specifically told him that he was a financial advisor to the Rothschilds and the family of the Rothschilds. So I want to play this and just get your take on this, Whitney.
I think it was his experience at an industrial level, like working for a big company like Bear Stearns, and then he had done personal work for the Rothschild family in France.
Personal wealth management, essentially?
I don't know.
Okay. We've seen some reports that he would present himself as a bounty hunter, that he would find people's missing money. Do you recall him saying anything like that?
No. Well, specifically, I talked to Ellie de Rothschild, and so I mentioned that earlier. So he represented their whole family, so there had been a whole bunch of people. Most of them I never would have met, but I knew Ellie. I never met people, but there were people that called me that either insinuated or said they knew Jeffrey through a financial relationship. And so, I mean, they could have been actors, but in the time, a guy calls me up. I'll give you an example. It's just no, because I want you to understand this, because it's so confusing to me. He would say, like, I'm providing financial advice to the founders of Google. I'm providing financial advice to Jeff Bezos. I'm providing financial advice for the chief technologist at Google. And wow, I'm in good company, because these are really smart guys with a lot of money. And you have to put yourself in the mindset of if my attorney said, he was qualified to argue in front of the Supreme Court, I'd believe him. I didn't say to call the Supreme Court and say, tell me, is he really an attorney or did he do this?
So, Whitney, as you talked to one of the biggest,
Lex Wexner,
as you mentioned, one of the biggest pieces of this is the financial ties, right? That still needs to be pulled apart. This is one of the biggest pieces of the Epstein story here. Did anything he say there surprise you at all? That was Les Wexner.
Well, actually, what he said is known. So, for example, as far as the Google co-founders, he managed Sergey Brin's family trusts and had very significant ties. I believe that came out during the J.P. Morgan case in the USVI, where Sergey Brin was actually subpoenaed, but it was settled and never went to court. So I guess that didn't go anywhere. But he was intimately involved with Sergey Brin in particular. And I know Ghislaine Maxwell had significant ties to Jeff Bezos, and the two of them cultivated lots of ties to the biggest names in big tech, Mark Zuckerberg, Reid Hoffman, Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel, among others. So that definitely rings true. And then, of course, Epstein claiming to represent the Rothschilds. That's obviously been made public in the emails as well. But I've argued in my book that, after Maxwell's death, Robert Maxwell's death in 1991, he pops up with Ghislaine in public for the first time and is, for all intents and purposes, the heir to Robert Maxwell's portfolio, probably with Israeli intelligence and probably with some of the illicit financial operations that Maxwell was engaged with at the time, and also his link with some of these organized crime networks I was talking about earlier. But why did Robert Maxwell come to the United States? He made this big entrance into New York specifically a year or two before he died, and brought Ghislaine with him. And the reason he did that was specifically for the Rothschild banking family. And this is actually in a New York Times article that I reference in my book. I forget the exact title of the article, but it's like the Rothschilds mega dealer or something like that. But if you look it up on the archive, dealer is spelled wrong. They switched like the E and the A for some reason, probably to make it harder for you to find. But basically it says that the Rothschild banking dynasty, that at that time, which was, this article came out in the 1980s, they saw it as an error that they had never properly established a significant foothold on U.S. Wall Street. They had focused instead in Europe and other theaters. And so in the 1980s, they created a Rothschild entity on Wall Street, and they had it focus on mergers and acquisitions, specifically M&As. And to do so, they recorded, and to ensure their success, they recruited some corporate raiders that they had a close relationship with from Britain. One of them was Robert Maxwell, and the other one was Jimmy Goldsmith, who was a cousin to the Rothschilds, and also involved in the same organized crime intelligence linked nexus that Robert Maxwell was also tied to via the Claremont Club, which I discuss in my book. And Jimmy Goldsmith, actually, Epstein met a lot of his elite friends in New York, even though he's from there, but in the elite circle for the first time, actually at Jimmy Goldsmith's mansion in the area in the 1970s.
Wow.
Right after coming back from the United Kingdom on a backpacking trip when he dropped out of college, which I would argue it all kind of goes back to that crowd. So Goldsmith and Maxwell basically come over and engage in these M&As fronting for the Rothschild family specifically. And then Epstein takes over the portfolio. And then we know now, actually it's been coming out, I think, since there were new releases of Epstein information, I think in the year after my book came out. So that would be 2023 or so, downstream of the USVI case, when it was settled, talking about his ties to the de Rothschilds specifically, which is the French side of that banking dynasty. And if you have been paying attention, you would know for some time that Evelyn de Rothschild in particular, very, very close to Jeffrey Epstein. She actually wrote a letter to Bill Clinton in 1995 that he should meet Jeffrey Epstein and talk to him about currency stabilization. So this is something that's been going on for a long time, and he's been very involved with this particular family, which it goes without saying has extremely deep ties to the state of Israel for an extremely long period of his career. And again, I would argue that if any family is untouchable, that's one of them. And I doubt investigators would get very far in probing that family.
Right.
So, Whitney, will you hang with us for a few more minutes? We just got some more. Do you have to run? I just want to make sure that we're not.
I have to pick up my kids. So,
how much?
maybe,
I do too, actually.
8 more minutes.
8 more minutes. Okay. So we'll just take a quick pause here. I want to ask you, there's some new Wexner video that just emerged. I want to get your take on that, and then we'll get you out of here so you can pick up your kids. So we'll just take a quick break,
Okay,
and then
sounds good.
we'll be right back.
Okay, before we do, we want to tell our friends about Cowboy Colostrum, because unlike other colostrum brands, Cowboy Colostrum is the first day whole colostrum rich in bioactives like immunoglobulins, didn't say that nicely, but you know what it is, and growth factors. Now, if you've been a nursing mommy like me, you know what colostrum is, because it's the first substance that you make. It's called pre-milk. It's like a probiotic, a prebiotic, an antibiotic. It's all the good stuff that sets your baby up with all they need to face the world. Well, you still can benefit from that without being a nursing infant. You can take bovine colostrum. Cowboy colostrum colostrum isn't processed or stripped down. It is the whole, full fat, high in protein, and ultimate nutrient density. So check it out for yourself. They have various flavors, chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. Go to cowboycolostrum.com/redacted news, and for a limited time, get 25% off your entire order, or scan the code on your screen. Once again, that's cowboycolostrum.com/redacted news. Okay, we're back with Whitney Webb. She's been detailing all of the Epstein revelations since she is one of the best experts in the world. I have to do my pickup. She has to pick up her kids in about 10 minutes, so I'll let Clayton. Whitney, it was great to see you. I'm running to my carpool, and Clayton will keep you for just 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes.
All right, keep talking, and then we'll run out of time.
I'll shut up. I'm going. Goodbye.
All right, bye.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we just got some new video in, and they're starting to release pieces of this deposition, and it's starting to flow out. So I want to play this piece for you right now.
Did you ever spend time with Epstein and Donald Trump?
Together?
Yes.
I want to answer this question accurately. I would go to some of the Victoria's Secret fashion shows because they're very important to the brand. At some of the fashion shows, Jeffrey was there and some Trump was there. And I remembered because Trump would always introduce himself to me. And I always thought it was kind of odd that he was at the fashion show because he had nothing to do with fashion.
Did you ever spend time with Epstein?
So he finds it odd that Trump would go to a fashion show, and he had to go to these Victoria's Secret fashion shows, not because he wanted to see beautiful women in their underwear backstage, but because it was so important to the brand.
Yeah, I don't really buy that. Well, actually, I mean, it's possible he wasn't interested in the women. There's been rumors for a long time from local Ohio journalists that Wexner is not actually interested in women, and that his wife is kind of, a beard, as it were.
Interesting.
Which is very possible because in some of these files, there, I believe, allegations from one confidential human source alleging that Epstein and Wexner engaged in relations themselves. And that, has been alleged also, years prior by a local Ohio journalist that covered Wexner and Epstein for a very long time in the 1990s and early 2000s named Bob Fitrakis. Maybe he wasn't actually interested. But what Wexner is interested in, by his own admission, according to this New York Magazine interview that he gave in the 1980s, is accumulating more and more power and control. And the reason he says that in that article, it's so crazy you have to go and read it, is because he considers himself demonically possessed by what he calls a debuk, which is the Yiddish term for a demonic possession. And he says he had it when he was a child, it left when he was a teen, and then when he was 40, it returned to him and makes him want to accumulate more and more power and become more and more powerful and grow his business. Given everything we know, that's just the icing on the cake, as it were.
Well, some of the other stuff that that maybe we haven't talked about here briefly before you have to go is, I want to just touch on the J.D. Vance connection here. He, as you reported, he did a fundraiser at Wexner's house to raise money.
When he was a low-ranking guy, and I would argue that's because every Ohio politician has to try and kneel at Wexner to get anywhere. And that would go for people running for Ohio governor right now, like Vivek Ramaswamy.
Also, Wexner's connections to AIPAC. And so this deep web with Israel, but I think you've reported over the years that Wexner funded or groomed a lot of the AIPAC people, who then, of course, lobby.
Yeah,
and
his foundation did, but he controls it. And the people he put in charge of it are have ties to this. It's a secret society, but a lot of the people in my book are openly part of it. It's called B'nai B'rith. It's the entity that gave birth to the Anti-Defamation League, which trains, the FBI and law enforcement people. But their board of overseers involved a lot of people that pop up in this scandal for different reasons. But people like Edmund Safra in the 1980s was there when Wexner was recruiting from there for his foundation. Edgar Bronfman was there there. And allegedly the Bronfmans is part of why Epstein ended up leaving Bear Stearns in 1981. Max Fisher, who was Wexner considers him one of his business mentors, or main business mentors. You could argue he had about 3 or so, and a lot of these figures that he was really connected to. So he pulled from there, and they have a lot of influence. Roy Cohn, who I've written about extensively, he was a mentor to Donald Trump, but also a sex blackmailer, intimately involved with organized crime. He represented mob bosses like Tony Salerno, among others. He was involved in a litany of very shady stuff. He was also a big B'nai B'rith guy, and his father actually ran it, who was a judge in New York, the New York chapter, which is considered to be the most powerful. And so, you could argue that the Wexner Foundation is kind of an extension of those power networks, and they've been basically, that foundation has intimate connections to most of the top people at AIPAC and a litany of high power Israeli public officials.
And we just confirmed the part of this deposition that just confirmed that Wexner just confirmed under oath, and the GOP has now released this video and he says under oath that he handed over total control, power of attorney, hundreds of millions of dollars, his entire empire essentially, to Jeffrey Epstein, because he was referred to him by the Rothschild. So basically the Rothschild's involvement here is the tie that brought him into this.
Well, he said for a long time that he met Epstein through Robert Meister, who was an insurance executive. I think at the time he was at A&A in 1986 or 1987. Some sources say 1985. And that what Epstein became intimately involved in Wexner's inner circle around 1987 or so, and then in the early 90s obtained all this power of attorney. But if you recall what I said a few minutes ago about how Wexner views himself and where his ambitions for power come from, if he wants to become more powerful and wealthy, isn't it interesting that he would seek out someone like Jeffrey Epstein and give him complete power over his affairs to do just that for him? Yeah, it's remarkable. And as you pointed out too, this whole naive billionaire play that Wexner tries to pull off. I've even seen videos now that they're just releasing where his lawyer is reaching over to him, telling him and he says to him in his ear, if you answer any of these questions with more than 5 words, I'll fucking kill you. Those are his words. The lawyer leaning over and telling Les Wexner not to say anything. Yeah.
And you got to play the naive old man billionaire. I don't know. I'm just an old man. It's like the mob. It's an old mob trick, right?
Isn't Trump odd that he'd be into models? I don't know. I think it was pretty known by the time Victoria's Secret launched their fashion show in the late 90s that Trump was very into models and teamed up with elite models and John Casablancas to do stuff at the Plaza Hotel he owned, and met them through Studio 54 parties. Again, Roy Cohn was involved in that, and got connected with this world of supermodels. He married models. I mean, it's okay. Well, how odd that Trump is into models.
Yeah, it's shocking. Whitney, you're incredible reporting as always. So Unlimited Hangout is your website, of course. You have new reporting coming out. When can people expect your big new reporting to come out here on unlimitedhangout.com?
We'll see. Hopefully the next week or two, it should be out. I don't have that much left. So happy to be wrapping that one up because that's been sitting there for a long time. But I guess there was a reason for that. And now I can add a lot of these new emails to it to flesh out the story even more. But we have a lot coming up at Unlimited Hangout, a lot of pretty spicy investigations that are Epstein related, including one specifically into Wexner's personal fiefdom where he hosted Congress, New Albany, Ohio, and a lot of ties there between Wexner and Epstein and things that are happening there right now.
Wow. Whitney Webb has got to run and pick up her kids. We're glad to have you back.
I do.
Glad to have you back into the mix here, providing your incredible research and voice. We need you out there. That's for sure.
Thanks.
It was a notable silence when Whitney was gone for many, many months. So thanks. Hope everything's great with you and your family. And thanks for joining us here, Whitney. Great to see you.
It is. Thanks. Take care, Clayton.
Thanks, Whitney. Okay. We're going to get to all of your super chats here and questions you have. We're going to open it up here in just a moment. But first, when is the last time you woke up actually feeling rested? When's the last time you looked in the mirror and recognized the guy staring back at you? If you're dragging through the days with no energy, zero motivation, a gut that won't budge no matter what you do, a sex drive that's basically flatline, well, you're not alone. And no, you're not just getting older. Blokes was built for men who are tired of feeling like a shadow of who they used to be and want to actually do something about it. That dad bod, the brain fog, all of it, it's actually tied directly to your hormones. Every Blokes lab includes a 30 to 60 minute consultation with a licensed clinician who connects what you're feeling to what's actually happening in your body and builds you a real plan to fix it. We're talking TRT, peptide therapy, NAD+, encephalamine, treatments that get right to the root cause and help you feel like yourself again. Stronger, sharper, and actually present. So when you start with TRT or any of their part of this process with Blokes, you can actually add ED or hair loss prescriptions for just $1 a month. So it's time to stop settling. Go to joyandblokes.com/redacted news. It's JOI and Blokes, BLOKES.com/redacted news for 65% off your labs and 20% off all supplements. Again, that's joyandblokes.com/redacted news. Get 65% off your labs and 20% off all your supplements when you use that code redacted news. And you can also scan the QR code right there on the screen. All right, let's open it up for some super chats here and see what we've got. We've got a lot of them here. Okay, I'm going to ignore. Thank you for all the Ryan Dawson stuff. Appreciate that, but I'm not getting involved in any legal disputes of that. Thank you for your donation there. Appreciate it, JFDFW. Any Epstein ties to the Bilderberg group? They've never allowed to public record what's going on in there. Well, I think, in fact, we talked about the Bilderberg group and some of the connections with some of the members of the Bilderberg group specifically. In fact, we did an interview today separately with Derek Brose just on that very question, but there are definitely ties to that for sure. All right. Let's see. Prep Invest, thanks. My God, I feel bad for her. Yeah, I feel bad for her kids. If they ever lie, she's going to already be 50 steps ahead of them before they can even speak. And these bots are so annoying in the chat, she says. And these bots. Yeah, we get a lot of bots. Anytime we've got people like Whitney Webb on, or people that are going to call out these like Israeli connections, or with all this research, you're going to get the bots. The bot armies attack immediately. That's what's going to happen, unfortunately. They paid. It's cheap and it's effective. Thank you, Fligelanio says, thank you, Whitney Webb. We love you and so grateful. Same to Redacted. And Snowy says, I heard about the fires in Chile and Argentina. I was hoping that Whitney Webb and her family were safe and sound. Indeed. Thank you, GTB, as well. Let's see here. You guys have any questions, thoughts? Philip, David, Grim. Christy says, I missed the first 30 minutes. Is Whitney back in the States? No, she's in Chile. She lives in Chile. They are deleting literally every comment about a certain region. Is that what happens? Do those get like deleted? David?
Yeah, we don't. I don't know if they just hold them or what. Like, we just never know, because sometimes like we don't even see them.
Oh, on YouTube?
Yeah.
YouTube blocks like so many comments. So like YouTube auto moderates comments. So if you're like, Redacted is censoring my comments, no, YouTube is censoring your comments. Rumble does not. So I think you can post things on Rumble. I don't have no problem with it there. I don't think they censor anything, but maybe they do. I don't know.
Yeah, not that I know of.
Let's see. Thank you. Long Meadow says, thank you, Redacted crew. Fantastic conversation today with Whitney Webb. Appreciate that. The 7K Army literally raiding the entire show today. It happens. Again, anytime we do stories on Israel or we talk about the Epstein-Israel connection, verifiable facts and emails, we'll get flooded with bots.
Like what a better way to show you're not involved than staying out of it, you know?
Like Mossad has nothing better to do. Like, leave us the fuck alone, okay? You and CIA, like, shut the fuck up. Oh, man. That's amazing. Maybe they didn't like me telling the truth about what's about to happen with the Iran war that's probably going to start on March 1st, by the way. I just spoke to a military source who says that the USS Abraham Lincoln has now been extended. It's been like one of the longest deployments on record. They were supposed to already come home. They've already been extended twice, now a third time. And with the USS Gerald Ford, two carrier battalion groups now in position, and they're being told that they're not coming back. So they're being held there. So they just got word that they're being extended again, the USS Abraham Lincoln. So getting ready for this March 1st. I'm hearing from military sources that March 1st, in alignment with the Jewish holiday, is when this is going to happen against Iran. So they have to get all of their bots and social media together. That's why lesbian Lindsey Graham was over there, laying the groundwork for that, of course. Jack Rabbit says, yeah, it's redacted censoring on Rumble, and don't say they aren't. They have censored me 10,000 times.
Wow. I mean, we do censor links, but that's just because.
Yeah. So Jack Rabbit, are you posting links? We do not allow links because links can be spam, and then people click on them and they can get their accounts phished and hacked. Or if you say anything negative about my wife, then we will block you.
Yeah. Or if you're outright saying racist, like really, really bad things. Like we have a very long fuse.
Yes. So Jack Rabbit, if you literally have gone over that, then you maybe need to check yourself, Jack Rabbit.
Yeah. We trust our mods.
Yeah. Portuguese news says it's this weekend, the attack on Iran. No, the Portuguese news. I lived in Portugal for 5 years, and the Portuguese news is basically state media. So it could be, it could be like a distraction from what's really about to happen, which is like next weekend. Thank you, Chili Pepper. Great work. Have to use characters even in a super chat to get a comment through. I know we get thousands of comments. It's hard for us to even click on them and put them on the screen here. Okay, Chris Carpeo. Christy Carpeo. So that story that was going around yesterday with Tucker was not true. The reporter who initially wrote that story was wrong. I confirmed that was wrong. So this idea that Tucker was detained in Israel and held against his will was not right. Was not correct.
And surely they took that story down or added an edit, right?
I don't think so. So yeah, Tucker and his whole team were held and all of this, and no, that's not true. All they did, it was just they just questioned him, like, why are you here? And basically were like a little bit of a pain in the ass, but he wasn't detained. The reporter who wrote the story was wrong. So just to set the record straight on that story. Talk to geologist Sean Wilsey. Take two geologist Sean Wilsey when? Okay, don't know quite, Lawrence. I don't understand that one, but thank you.
I think it's supposed to be talk. But
Your wife, Clayton, is extremely lovely, and we love her when she pulls you up. Bless you, you both, and your team. Thank you so much. I know people get threatened by smart women sometimes. It's okay when a man is like smart, but like when somebody like Whitney Webb or like my wife, like,
yeah, I mean, I got terrified and peed myself about 4 times while she was talking.
What specifically stood out to you, Whitney's comments?
No, like, she's just so freaking sharp, man. Like, yeah. I always appreciate any guest we have on that can just like the amount of connections they have in their head, and it's just like they can just run down it just like rapid fire.
Yeah,
I'm always impressed by the guests that can do that.
It's a good thing you wear Depends, Philip.
Well, not always. It just, depends.
I see what you did there.
Someone asked, has Tucker commented on that story? No, he commented to me personally, but I will not tell tales out of school, like beyond what I just said. I won't share personal conversations about what happened, but I don't believe he's commented on it. I think one thing to know about Tucker, like, he is not a fan of stories about him. Like he does not want, like, the story was about he's interviewing somebody in Israel, right? Like, that's the story, not like what happened to me, like me. He doesn't talk about stuff like that. Really ever, unless he's like questioned about it or someone interviews him and asks him about it. So he's not going to come out and he's not going to, talk about it. Yeah, the Tucker story was on RT briefly and then it disappeared. Yeah, because again, the story was fake. So whoever initially wrote that story was wrong. Someone says Tucker's not going to talk about it because he's controlled opposition. Okay. That's my favorite. Controlled opposition. Okay. Controlled by who? Oh, that's hilarious. Sharp as a blade, that Whitney went. Whitney has insane memory bank. Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Her knowledge is insane. Smart women and artful women both exist in this world. That's right. Indeed. We'll take a few more of your super chats here if you get them in here in a second. I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Connect Invest, though, real quick. Is your money actually working for you, or is it sitting there doing absolutely nothing? Because if you've been parking cash in a savings account or a CD hoping that it's going to grow now that the US dollar is being devalued, you already know the truth. It's not going to move the needle at all. And if you try to ride out the stock market, you're basically strapping your future to a roller coaster. There is a smarter option, and it's one that thousands of everyday investors are already using to grow their wealth without volatility, without complicated real estate deals, and without needing a ton of money to start. It's called Connect Invest. And the way to sign up, all you need to do, you can start with as little as $500 in your account. Just go to connectinvest.com, just go to redacted.inc/invest right now. That's redacted.inc/invest. We've got a special landing page right there. And if you sign up today, you'll get a $50 bonus in your account. So let me explain how this works. With Connect Invest, you can invest in real estate-backed notes. Now, all of my children, we all have accounts set up for my children in their IRAs. You can do it in your IRA as well, in a self-directed IRA. So every one of my children, including myself and my wife, we all use this. And what it'll do is you can earn fixed, predictable income up to 9% annually. 9% returns. Yes. And you can start with as little as $500 in your account. So again, my kids have some IRA money. Each of their IRAs are different. And we have them invested using Connect Invest to earn up to 9% annual returns. Now, the best part is it's real estate short notes, and you can pick the length of the short note. So you want to do just like 6 months. Basically, you'll tie your money up for 6 months, and then, you can reinvest it after the 6 months or whatever you want to do. 12 months or 24 months. So 6, 12, and 24 months with 9% returns. So like if you've got some money sitting in one of those crappy savings accounts with your bank and it's like earning 0.001% or something ridiculous, again, you can open up an account with as little as $500. Just test it. Like you're like, I don't know if I'd trust Clayton in this. Well, then test it. Test it with $500 and see what your returns are after 6 months. I'm telling you, everyone on my team, everyone on our Redacted Invest team is an investor, and in my entire family. So I wouldn't put my kids through it if I didn't believe in it. Redacted.inc/invest. You can start investing in real estate short notes. This is projects like residential real estate projects, commercial real estate projects. This is a real fund, okay? And that's something I've been doing for years. So great returns, 9% returns. Start today. Redacted.inc/invest. Give it a try. And when you sign up using that link, you get $50 in your account as a bonus. So give it a shot today. I know you will thank me later. Trust me. It's really, really good. Let's see. All right, let's see. Zach, here's a super chat. Thank you, Zach. Rose says you should look into the connection between sulfuric acid found in Steve Bannon's hot tub in 2017 and the sulfuric acid ordered by Epstein after his indictment. What? I've not heard that story. Steve Bannon's hot tub. Can you imagine how disgusting that would be? If there's a hot tub you don't want to be in, it's Steve Bannon's hot tub. That's for sure.
Wonder if that's where the Joker came from.
Oof. Oh, man. I miss those old redacted 20-minute openings with those very Whitney Webb-like, filled with facts that many people still don't know. Yeah, we had to update it because we had that our normal show open. Like if you watch us live, we have a show open so people can kind of gather up in the chat room and everything like that. And the old one we had for years, you know, and it was time to do a refresher and add new ones. And we're going to be updating it from time to time. Grim, who does it, is going to be updating it with new stuff in there, new blood, to kind of keep it fresh for people. So I like the new one a lot, though. Money. Craig says, money. Tucker is controlled by money. It's easy to prove. You can pull up videos where he said the exact opposite. Okay.
I think it's like, no, I think you have to understand, like, people are on journeys. So they might say something 6 years ago that they don't believe at all today. Like people have to have you have to give them the grace to change and realize things.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's like being controlled by money. I mean, as long as I've known him, that has been, he's always admitted he's just terrible with money. He just would he'll just buy everyone Starbucks. Like when I worked with him on Fox and Friends, he would just buy every morning, the entire crew. He'd just be like, here, take my credit card and just go buy everyone. Like he was never really concerned with money at all. He admits when he was at MSNBC and leaving, he almost went bankrupt. He ran out of money. He just went almost totally bankrupt. So I don't know that he's I've never known him to be motivated by money at all. But maybe you know something I don't know. I've known
he doesn't even watch TV. That shocked me.
He doesn't even own a television. I've been to his house. He has no freaking television. So I don't know, he spends his time fishing and hunting. He's not really, anyway, but that's, so when people say these things out of turn, well, how do you prove that? It's you're an anti-Semite. It's well, okay, prove that he's an I don't know. Anyway, but a lot of bots there, and trust me, obviously I don't know if you heard the former Israeli, what's his name, the other day, or just yesterday it came out where he said basically we have to destroy Tucker Carlson. That young people under 30 are really influenced by Tucker Carlson, and we have to basically destroy him. That's from the mouth of an Israeli official. An American journalist, you have to destroy? Okay. So again, I'm not surprised. When we do a show or talk about Tucker, you're going to get flooded with people that have all this fake, Laura Loomer information that don't know what they're talking about. So it's not surprising to me at all.
Or if you still trust people like Mark Levin and people like that.
Yeah. I mean, you have to understand Tucker is a Christian, like a devout Christian, not a Christian Zionist, not like one of those like fake Christians who believes in like a Schofield Bible. Like he's a real Christian. So when someone says, Craig in the chat says, Tucker deeply distrusted Muslims until he visited a bunch of rich Muslims. Apparently Tucker read a different Quran. When did he
I mean, if you read the Quran versus the Bible, the Bible has a lot more violence in it than the Quran. I mean, like it's a book.
Well, also Tucker was actually really aligned with like a lot of neocons back in the day. He supported the Iraq War against Muslims. Like he was a full-on like neocon, writing articles about it, really supportive of it. And then he went to Iraq and saw death and destruction and completely changed his tune on it. And he openly admits one of his greatest mistakes in life was supporting the Iraq War and supporting like the assassination and killing of millions of Muslims. So people can change. Like I'm not speaking for him. You know, he can do interviews and talk about his own beliefs, but I don't know. He just did a whole speech yesterday. He just did a whole video yesterday on Christians, and he the whole first like 10 minutes of the video was all about how as Christians we're called upon to never hate anyone, regardless of race, creed, anything, Jews, Muslims. So he spent like the first 10 minutes like talking about how we should be called upon to never hate anybody. So I don't know. It was an interesting interview last night that he did. And then he also just did that interview with Huckabee. So we will see.
I can't wait for that.
Oh, I can't.
I hope it's Ted Cruz-esque.
Oh man. The thing is though, I mean, I've known Huckabee for years. I've interviewed him hundreds of times. And he's an incredibly gracious person, you know, incredibly kind. He's always believed, though, like, I don't know, he has this weird, like, Christian Zionist approach to life where even when he was going to Israel, he would come back from Israel when I was interviewing, he brought me a yarmulke as a gift. He brought me cufflinks from Israel. Like, okay, thank you. I never wore the yarmulke. I mean, I don't, you know, but, like, this is, like, not a new position for him, you know. Under the Trump administration as ambassador, like he really believed in this like Christian Zionist, like Schofield Bible, you know, God's chosen people storyline, this like fake storyline. So anyway, it's going to be an interesting theological discussion, you know? All right. I think, yeah, any other Fox fired who? Secure signal. Fox fired Tucker. Yeah. There's a couple of, I mean, I know some stuff I probably won't really talk about, although I think one of the reasons that Fox fired Tucker is because of Tucker having Trump on his show and the powers that be. Rupert Murdoch, I mean, they hated Trump. They absolutely did not want him on his show, did not want him to become president of the United States. And when Tucker had him on his show, he got phone calls from the executives and Rupert Murdoch. They were furious about it. That's one big reason. That's one huge reason, actually. Kyle says, when are you going to go? Sorry, I can't click on this thing. Kyle, Fear the Haggis, says, Clayton, when are you going to go on to catch up with Smash JT and talk games? Has he got back to you yet? Yeah, we were communicating through DMs a while ago, and that kind of just fell through. I don't know why. We just didn't catch up further, but I would love to. I'd be thrilled to talk games with him for sure. What is going on?
I don't know that.
Yeah. Any other?
Voice is not recognized.
Yeah, that's right. Where is the... Thank you, Maria Torres. Appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Thank you guys for spreading the truth. I appreciate that. Stop smoking the dope, Ant-Man channel. Thank you. Do you think, Ugly Truth says, do you think the DOJ is going to do anything now that we're seeing other countries move on this? Who? I mean, are you going to bring Les Wexner in there? I doubt it. Doesn't seem like they are. Doesn't seem like they're going to, for whatever reason. And any of these people, I don't think they're going to see any prosecutions. I mean, I doubt it, unfortunately. Unless there's like some sort of aides and assistants, people that worked on the crew that were complicit, maybe.
If Maxwell's not going to be, like nothing's going to go beyond what's going on with her now, her sweetheart deal. I mean, none of these other people are going to see any jail time.
Someone in the chat says, didn't Tucker just to do an interview about jihad and the invasion of Muslims into the... Man, these things fly by so fast. I can't get them. I missed it. Maybe. I missed that interview about the invasion of Muslims in the United States. Old-fashioned by choice says, Clayton, look up what Mormons believe about them being Israelites. That's what Glenn Beck has been taught. He's a Mormon. Have John Delian on Mormon Stories on the show. Interesting.
Mormon, he seems more like a Zionist. Are Mormons Zionists? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, Mormons are born out of what, what's his name? Joseph Smith finding the whole
tiles in a hat
fake story out of Albany, New York or whatever. He found like gold plates in a hat up in the mountains, and then when he was asked to like produce them, he's like, no. But is it like people are like, what are the gold plates say? And he's like, it says I can have as many women as I want. People are like, oh, okay. So now you have the break off, of course, of the fundamentalists and the LDS, and all of that. So yeah, it's very interesting. But I love new religions that are just like created like a few hundred years ago. Just like I just found something in the hills, and then like the Schofield Bible written like in the early 1900s. I was literally talking to a Christian today, and he said, I grew up in a family that was like believed that like, we had to do everything we could to support Israel. And he's like, thank God I broke free of that once I started educating myself on it. He's like, it was a revelation. I was like, yeah, so you guys grew up kind of on the Schofield Bible. He's like, oh yeah. And then once you realize that Schofield was a total con artist, he was saying, and I was like, wow, not everyone breaks free of that. Like go to Texas, like everyone believes in the Schofield Bible, like this like con artist, womanizing freak in the early 1900s, and like funded by Zionists before Israel was even created. Like it was brilliant propaganda, but people are such sheep, they'll fall for this bullshit. It's amazing.
Well, and think about L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. That's another one.
That's another one. Yeah. Man, that's crazy. Oh man. The golden plates. That's right. Jason says I missed it. Ant-Man channels. Clayton, get Tucker on, ask him if he circled the black cube in Mecca. Don't forget what they did to Haiti. Mormons own all of Las Vegas now, not the Italian mob. Do they? That's weird because like Mormons don't believe in drinking like caffeine, alcohol. Like they own Sin City.
I would assume gambling's probably on that list somewhere.
Yeah. I think so too.
It's funny. It was years ago. I had a coworker, a bunch of coworkers, and I all went out for coffee. And like the server was like asked one of the Mormon kids, is like, do you want some coffee? And she just runs off this list. I can't have caffeine. I can't have blah blah blah. Just starts listing all these things off. And I just look at her. I was like, is that no or what? Like you can just say no, thank you. Even.
Yeah, we don't need to go into your whole doctrine. And don't like what's the whole thing with the underwear too? Like I love that. That's
the white T-shirt.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated about the religions that like do all these random things to get around like their doctrine. Like isn't like Orthodox Jews, they can't they're not allowed to turn on lights, right? On the weekends or something.
Well, I know there's something about they're not allowed to leave their homes, so they tie ropes to each other's homes and hold the rope as they're walking to another home. So that's technically like you know what? We'll show you, God.
Yeah. We got you, God. I'm going to tie a rope to my front door. I'm going to tie it to the door of the other house. And then after sunset or whatever, then I can hold the rope and I'm still technically in my house. Okay. I love this. I love that kind of stuff. It's my favorite. Or the, like you're not allowed to turn on lights. So they have like special lights that like are like you pull, like you like lift up the top of it, but you're not turning it on. You're just like basically covering it up. So it's like you would do, like a server would bring like a food plate out with like a hot, here you go. Here's your creme brulee, So we leave the light on. We just cover it up. Oh, so you're not technically turning it on. We got you, God. We tricked you again. It's so funny. Oh God. I love religion. So great. Someone says we have a typo in our title. Do we? Prince Andrew arrested. Israel controlled Epstein security. Oh, Price Andrew. Shoot. Yeah. Can we change the title of our show instead of Price Andrew? Damn. I was probably typing too quickly and didn't check it. I had like people in the house and I was dealing with all that. So sorry about that.
Grim, can you handle, I'll do YouTube, Grim, if you can handle.
I'm on YouTube right now.
Rumble. Oh, okay.
It's fixed.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know what they're talking about. It says Prince Andrew right there.
Yeah. How did you guys get that wrong? All right, everyone, I got to run. I got to make some dinner for the kiddos, and it's going to be a busy Thursday night. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll be back here we got lots of great content for you this weekend, a lot of deep dive interviews, some pretty big stories, actually, that you're not going to want to miss. I think one of them is going to be a very big deal at the Pentagon, let me just say. And it's going to be a pretty shocking story. We're going to release that story. We're just waiting on word from our source on that before we can release that interview, but I think it will be pretty eye-opening. So thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. Turn on the little bell notification so you'd be notified when we release that video and that interview. And have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you back here Monday.